I am drawn directly to the book, The Soul's Code by James
Mm-hmm.
Hillman. And I'm not even through reading it, but he talks about humans that are like, Mozart's an example
Mm-hmm.
of a human who has a very clear gift that the outside world can see. So
Mm-hmm.
there's humans like that. I mean, like Einstein, Tesla, like there's just people who you're like, "Oh, that's their gift." Like it's just so clear. I mean, even Jane Goodall, like just the way she operated in life was so clear. She was so deeply in her dharma.
Uh-huh. She sure was.
Yes. And so I remember that moment where I connected that and it was just like, "Oh my gosh, Nikki is a Mozart." Which is like a really bold thing to say.
It sure is. It feels bold receiving it.
Yes, I'm aware. But, and we've spent now much time together, coaching together, and me witnessing your coaching in your channel, and then also receiving from it as well. And the best way I could describe it, I was like, "Oh, you're a modality
Mm-hmm.
like plant medicine." And that's also like a wild thing to say. And I get like people are like, "What do you mean?" And then they experiencing you and they're like, "Oh yeah, she's like a plant medicine journey." And I'm like, "I know." So then to see the experience that people have and then for them to share the same reflection, it's like I can now use language, speak how you are to people, and they're like, yes. And there's like this confirmation that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm starting way out here, and then we're gonna drill in. So, so I guess my question is like, okay, coming from you, like, what do you do, and who are you, like, in that way?
I don't like to describe myself as a human who's unlike any other human. But I think what the differences may be for me is that I can hear outside of the culture. So I'm walking around the planet not attaching to the same things that everyone else is attaching to. And I remember being able to identify that as a very small child. It's as if my crown would open and I would be able to access all of this information that was coming down from somewhere, but at that time I couldn't identify where that was. And I could hear things and I could see things and I could interpret pretty large concepts at that age that are, that somebody else wasn't teaching me. I was learning it through this energy. And yes, I think I'm walking around the world with this ability, and I don't know how that happened. I think that's why it's a gift. I'm not sure how, I'm not sure where that came from. It didn't come from a parent, and it didn't come from anything that I read, and it didn't come from you know, my family outside of my parents. So I just, it's just something that I have and something that happens to me. And I've had to figure this out over time. And yeah, I also feel I have more space than most people too. I operate with more space. Like there's not a lot that weighs my thoughts down or my Most people describe me as a free spirit, but I think what they're describing is a person who's not very weighted on the planet. I'm sort of like air. I can move in and out of these spaces like air and not take things with me, like not add a lot of density to my experience. Um, yeah, so I definitely am living a different experience. It's very hard to explain sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes when I hear you speak and I just knowing you have not experienced plant medicine, but sometimes when you're speaking, it is the language of being inside of a journey, which if you think and break that down, what that is, it's the deeper layers of consciousness.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it can yeah, so it can kind of feel like that.
Which is different than the different layers of the psyche. So I think that's, if I think about my childhood, my parents were in their psyche, in their psyches, in their shadows, in their beliefs, in their family patterns. And I was operating in consciousness, conscious awareness, understanding where all these elements are coming from and how they're connecting. And you know, if they would just see this, they could make this change. If they understood this dynamic, they could inform themselves better. I mean, I could just hear and see all this information and all these patterns and how they play out. It's just the most interesting experience, but it's beyond the psyche. It's not in the psyche.
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
it originates somewhere else, and I can only describe that somewhere else from what we know here on the planet as the universe. Like, it originates in the universe, and it originates in the the what I would call the Christed consciousness that we all have access to. And if we relate that to religion, it would be the Holy Spirit. And how the Holy Spirit or the consciousness can move through an individual. And it's much different than being connected to the psyche.
Mhm. Mhm. So, okay, so this gift came online when you were a young child.
Yes.
And then can you talk a little bit about the process of honing the gift?
Well, I did a lot of writing about this because I've been very burdened by this gift, to be honest. And I didn't understand this burden. But from writing it out and looking at it from that perspective, I spent a lot of time alone. I spent a lot of time in my room. I spent a lot of time interacting with the universe and the energy fields that were wanting to communicate with me. Because in my experience of this would have been, if I went to my parents and told them this experience was happening to me, I can imagine that the conversation would have went something like, what is wrong with her? Like, what is going on with her? We need to take her somewhere. This isn't normal. So somehow I already also knew that, for some reason, and somehow I knew that if I would speak about what was happening to me, that somehow I would be labeled something by the culture that didn't fit my experience, or what was happening to me. Because imagine it, you're delusional, you could be labeled bipolar, whatever experience you're having that isn't relatable to people, they want to relate it somehow.
Mhm.
So I just stayed in my room and I developed my gifts with spirit, and I listened to them, and I was being guided by them. And yeah, and I just knew that was my path. I knew
Mhm.
it from a very young age. I was sort of born with this non-attachment thing, where I couldn't attach, because if I attached, I wouldn't have been growing what it is I was supposed to grow on
Mhm.
this planet.
That makes sense. Okay, so you were like alone and you were honing this, and then you began to interact with mentors, correct?
Yes.
And so what
Yes.
was the mentor relationship like?
Um, so before I talk about the mentors, I decided to shut this whole thing down around the age of like 12. It was getting really too much for me. I felt very separate from my family, and I could see myself separating from my friends. And I just decided, wow, I'm just going to shut this down and I'm going to live just a normal just a normal life. And so I lived that way for a very long time. And it started coming back online when I was trying to conceive my daughter. And I heard very clearly from her that, Mom, if you do not start opening back up your intuition, I'm not going to come, because that's part of my purpose in life. Like, you have something that's a key for me. And so I'm not going to come if you don't open that door back up. So I didn't really understand that message. I was like, I don't know, because at that time I was so far removed from my gift that I was like, what is this? Like, I clearly heard that. I wasn't able to conceive for years. So I was having that challenge in the 3D reality. So then I went to a class at my friend's house, and these two women were teaching a class on spirituality, and I just gravitated to that information like bee to honey. Like, oh my gosh, this is for me. These people are for me. And I just went through 10 years of mentorship with them, learning about spirituality, universal law, learning about myself, learning about my gifts, learning about my biology and psychology in a way that had to be broken down in order to be a channeler. Because what my gift really is to be able to look inside of someone's how do I say this without sounding strange? But I have the ability through the eyes to be able to go in and see your soul's mapping that matches your universal mapping. And I can clearly tell you your soul's story, but from many, many different perspectives. From, karma, from dharma, from past lives, from your celestial story, from your spiritual gifts, from just anything that your soul is wanting to know in the moment that you're with me, I can reveal it to you. So, in order to hold space for people and to sit with people in that way, it's a very intimate space. I mean, I don't know about you, but how often do you want to reveal your soul to somebody? I mean, that is the most intimate thing you can experience with somebody and with yourself, even. So it took me a long time to want to step out and actually be of service in that way. I wanted to make sure that I could do that for people and not project on them, and not, you know, not reveal my patterns to them. Like, I take the space very seriously, because if somebody sits with me, they're sitting with me in a very intimate space, and I just take it very seriously.
Mhm. So, okay, so there are a lot of different types of channelers, and I don't even of course you can be called a channeler,
Right?
but it's more than that. And oracle is a good word too, but then there are a lot of different ways people are using both of those words.
Uh-huh.
And so some channelers are channeling maybe another frequency, or maybe you can even explain it better, but like they may not know where they're channeling from,
Mm-hmm.
or they may be channeling like a being, for example, but yours is like it's why the word channeling seems kind of not quite a right fit, because it's like, I mean, you are a channel, right? But you are literally seeing the grid of light around that person, which is different than channeling like a message from somewhere to a person, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that I can go into that pocket of how other people are doing it because,
Mhm.
I think about some of the channelers that I have experienced, um, whether through Instagram or whether in person, it's like they are connected to something that is communicating with them. And, you know, and that information that's coming through is right as it relates to them.
Mhm.
So, but for me, I almost feel like if you think about how the planet was created, and if we think about the universe and we think about how those two things match and meet, it's almost as if the universe mapped out the very specific things that the earth had to be or do or have in order to survive. So you think about animals, you think about plantation, you think about rivers, you think about sun, you think about the moon, you think about the people, you think about how the people impose themselves on the planet. So you think about, if we thought about it that way, that the earth itself had a grid and something was informing that grid to such a pure perspective that it created a world. And whatever that energy is, if you can follow that story with me and if you buy it, because that's up to you to kind of consider this story. But if you do, that's the very same energy that I read, but for you.
Mhm.
Like your world, your orientation, how you walk this planet, your gifts, what you're here to do, who you are. You know, all of that nature that's in you, I can see,
Mhm.
and it comes from somewhere so pure and so beautiful.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about the form that the information comes in as far as it not distorting?
Um wow, that is such a great question. So how this looks for me is I'm able to tap into the highest level of like the highest level of energy, and it starts funneling through, but not to my head. It starts funneling through up here. It I connect up here, then it funnels through this layer called the Christ consciousness, then it funnels through the I am presence, and it funnels through the higher self, and then it comes down to the crown. So it makes quite a journey from this place. And then once it hits the crown, because of all of the cleaning and clearing I have done, it the energy can go through my crown to my third eye, and then it just comes out of my mouth, and it hit I don't know this for sure because I haven't gotten this reflection from people, but I think it hits this place in their heart that feels so pure and so right and so truthful that it almost feels undeniable. And I think that happens because right from up here, nothing is distorting it, and then when it hits my head, it can definitely go through a distortion. I mean, obviously it's my body, and so it comes through as a very clear information, and it just comes out of me.
Well, yeah, and it also comes out in like you use imagery. Can
Yes.
you explain how you use imagery and how it translates?
Oh yes. So when the light language comes into my crown, it's definitely images. and those images mean something to the person I'm reading for, so that I cannot distort the information. So that imagery means something to the person I'm sitting with. And I have no idea what that information means at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, and just getting readings and observing you give readings, that person begins to then interact with that, and then they'll
Yes.
go, "Oh," and they know what it means.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
they do.
there is then an interaction. And um so what's also really interesting is observing how the way that you give them the information. So here's an example. Like, so if a an internal family systems parts work coach, like, let's just say they learn a very specific model, or a cognitive behavioral therapist, like, they go through a training and they like learn a model,
Uh-huh.
and they are essentially interacting with a person and working through a model, and there is this that form is happening in some regard, even though there is still like organic movement. But for you are not running one way of delivering information, though. It is delivered in the it is reconstructed for the person to hear just in the way that their psyche and soul is constructed,
Uh-huh.
which is wild. So really, what I have observed is that you are doing parts work with people, for example, through some of your coaching sessions, because it's not just channeling. There's like you're interacting with their parts. And so within that, though, it's how they want to do parts work, not
Yes.
how you do parts work, which
Yeah.
is like incredibly wild. And so if you were to be like, well, do you know what you did? You're like, no, because it's like, there is an aspect of it just coming through. There is a surrender aspect, right? Like, where it just is
Right.
coming through. It's not like you're pre-thinking, it's just happening in real time.
Right. Yes. And I would say that's probably why you would call me a Mozart, I guess. Because did I spend did I get a degree in psychology? No. Do I have a certification in parts work? No. Do I have I spent a lot of time learning about my own inner child? Yes. Um, but there is a language that comes through me that I have not been physically trained for here.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not like an analysis. It's not like a mental analysis. It
No.
is a channel.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between that, because therapists can learn pattern recognition, but this is not learning pattern recognition. This is a pure channel interaction. So then when the person says something, it's reading their through the channel. Like, what you
Right.
say back to them is specific to their reality.
Right.
And so you're like absent in many ways. I do see, of course, if you're doing sessions that are like more hybrid oriented with coaching and
Right.
channeling, your human self does come in and maybe give an example, or, like,
Yes.
it's not like your human self doesn't come in when you're in a coaching session.
Yes.
But I've seen you work with someone's part many times where they actually end up going through a visualization experience, which is like a parts work session. And
Hmm.
the entire thing unfolds uniquely every single time in a wildly diverse ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think the readings are um, the language of everyone's souls are very unique to that soul. Um, obviously, I mean, we know that in human form too. I mean, we register communication very differently, each of us do. But your light language, it tells a story of your life, your soul's life, in a way that is just very unique to you. I mean, I have done so many readings and none of them are the same. There's not one thing that's the same
Mhm.
anytime.
Yeah, and
And I
what's
also find it to be profound because I'm also me, Nikki, and I also have this gift, but I'm also surprised by the gift probably every day. I mean, I'm always in awe of it. And I can't explain that either. I've been doing this for so long, but every time I do it, I'm in awe of it. Like,
Mhm.
this is so incredible.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel that. It's very clear that that's occurring.
Hmm. It's
Yeah.
just incredible. And I don't, yeah, like I said, I've done many readings. None of them have ever been the same. Everybody has something, everyone receives something different that's uniquely for them. And the other element is it transforms people. Like I see the transformation over and over again. So whatever the information is, it's a very transformational information. It changes people.
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
changes.
let's talk about that. So, what happens? So the person receives the information, they hear it, it's moving into their body. Because they receive this reading, like what I know it's a funny question. Like what happens next?
um. Okay, I'm gonna have you speak to this too,
Mhm.
because the channel is pure. That that is a scientific formula, and I'm not going to get into all the pieces and parts of that, but it is in relationship to the God particle and way and how that spins and rotates allows people to have these transformations that are in alignment with the frequency and the vibration that they're holding. So, in a way, the channel is set up very scientifically to create and enact transformation for the person. So, if I am doing a reading for you, what I typically say is in 2 to 3 weeks, you will have an experience of this reading in your physical reality.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's
So,
happened for me every time, but then of course when we work together, I have now been able to receive lots of messages when all of these things happen.
mhm,
And of course, sometimes they're like little messages and sometimes they're huge, like
right.
medical in nature. Like I mean, big big things happen too. So it's the entire gamut and multiple things as well.
Mhm, mhm. I know. I always say that my work is for people who are really, and I use the word hungry because I think that relates to people, but it's like they're hungry for the next step. They want to know the thing that they can't reach in their own consciousness or their own thoughts or behaviors or beliefs. They can't reach it, even though they know it's there. Because one of the things that I wanted to say is that we know that it's there. We can feel it, but we don't know how to reach it. So people who sit with me are people who are wanting to reach the thing. They want to reach it. They don't want to think about it anymore. They don't want to feel it. Like, think about feeling a shoe that you're wearing and you have a pebble in it. It's like you can feel that pebble every freaking day, but you don't know how to get it out of your shoe. So this work, or how my gift is for people who want to reach that next thing. They
Mhm.
don't they don't want to feel that anymore. They want to experience it. They want to they want to have that experience in their reality.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a couple of like this is a little bit fractal in nature, but I personally believe that if you are coming in contact with someone like you to have a reading, then your soul wanted to have this experience.
Right.
And so this experiencing isn't disempowering by it opening up things that the person couldn't reach. What it is it's illuminating things that then unfold in their reality, but also it's teaching them how to connect deeper to their own intuition and soul, because it illuminates also how the universe is speaking to them.
Hmm.
And so over time you actually deepen into your own intuition and knowing, and are able to, through the reading it opens up the conscious awareness of those interactions.
Uh-huh. I think you're speaking to something really incredible because if I think about my practice, for example, I have taught many people to be able to get to this level that they can live their life consciously and they can understand how the universe is communicating with them. They can tap into their intuition. They know how to make these decisions um, that guide them to their highest timeline. And that is very true. Like by the time you're done with the mentorship, that's where you are in your life. Like you have all of that information
Mhm.
that you were seeking or wondering about or trying to reach yourself, or like you really do come out with an understanding of all of those elements I just mentioned.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you know, I'm a firm believer in this. If that wasn't the case, I'm not doing my job well, because that is what I want for people. Not
Mhm.
to hang out with me so I can tell you every single thing that's going to be going on for you or happening for you. No, I want you to learn how to be the creator of your own life and what that actually looks like on many levels. Not
Mhm.
just the level that the 3D reality has shown us, but many levels.
Yeah, and that's a huge component of what mentorship is. And like because it is to an aspect of it is to witness. And so by witnessing and also experiencing sessions at the same time, and then witnessing you, they get to really learn the language. You learn the
Yes.
language. It's like learning Spanish. Like you are learning a language, but it's you teach their language, not a language.
Right. Exactly.
Because it's so unique. And I think I love talking about the uniqueness of each person's individual communication and path is so important. And I don't even know how we would talk about it because it's so unique.
I know. It's very hard to talk about. I've been trying to talk about it for years.
Yeah.
I think you have to experience it. Um, I think you have to suspend a little bit, suspending your understanding of it, trying to understand it, because it's a thing that's hard to understand, because it hasn't been, it hasn't been studied. It hasn't been put in a book. You can't read about it. You you can't it's hard to understand.
Mhm.
It's hard to understand. You have to experience it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so one of the components that I kind of want to go into is how you teach people to then begin to interact with energy in the quantum. And that could be for like like I love the example of like a project or their business, for example, because that's something that almost nobody knows, but it's like such a foundational piece to.
Gosh, this is a good question. Let me
Mhm.
actually go into energy because I don't know how to answer it personally.
Mhm.
Generally, what happens is I will sit down and I will read for someone, and they will have their intention set on what it is they're wanting to achieve. So, for example, I've worked with a company that wanted to receive a certain amount of money every month. That was her intention. So then I will go into her energy field and I will read her grid and read her body, and I will make mention of the things that are going well for her in this area, and her into like what is going well energetically, what maybe some of her opportunities for growth or are, her shadow, maybe some work that she needs to do. And then uh, we talk about all of those elements, and then some kind of imagery comes in, like that relates to this person. And then all of the energy is kind of set for this quantum leap. Okay, so that's the very first thing that happens. It's already set for a quantum leap. Then the 2 weeks or 3 weeks go by, and this person can clearly tell me, oh, this is what happened. Um, Also, Indigo, I want to speak to the fact that in these sessions, we're already talking about how you have to show up when the circumstances happen in order to change your trajectory toward the quantum. So you are always going to have a direct experience that you have to show up for in a certain way in order to go to a different timeline. Does that make sense? So all of that
Mhm.
happens in a session. So, for
Mhm.
example, this is going to happen to you. This is where you're going to be. This is going to be your orientation. This is what you would have to do. So, if you're afraid, let's just say you're afraid of your power or you're afraid of telling the truth to somebody, you're going to have an experience where you actually have to stand in that and tell the truth. And once you tell the truth, you shift into the energy of the quantum that we already set in motion.
Mhm.
You're already there. Okay. And so then your life is going to unfold in a new way, orienting towards your intention.
Mhm.
So, like, the whole energy is already set for you. Like, even the experience is going to happen. And then you handle that experience in a way that matches the quantum. Once it matches the quantum, then you are in a different energy in a different timeline. And then you go from there. So it's like this, it's just this constant, it's a constant creation toward your intention.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And then, so I'm going to add another layer. So sometimes when you're doing sessions, what will also happen, and I would love for you to speak to this, is like you're actually, let's say, whether it's like a past life or there's something that energetically needs to be cleared now, you're actually doing energy work in those spaces too. So could you talk to that a little bit?
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you're asking me these questions because I forget all the things. Yes, sometimes one of your soul parts will come online and it has been injured in some way or doesn't understand something. And I will go and I will talk directly to that soul. And then I do have the gift of healing. So I will heal that part and it will unburden itself and it will then create with the soul, like the soul that's in the 3D right now. Like, it obviously it's your soul whether you're there in that reality or this one, but it un it unburdens itself and then it can create.
Mhm.
it could go on creating. But yes, that does happen. Yeah. So I am a soul healer. I can listen to the story of the soul and I can find out what it needs or what it wants or its desires, speak to that and then heal that aspect with
Mhm.
healing energy.
Yeah, and you being like a very celestial being, it's an like different healers work in different ways. For example, like um an ayahuasquero, they're looking at an energy grid and they are able to work on that through the pattern in song, right? And so you're in here re- repairing or adjusting
Yes.
in the grid in a very different way.
Yes.
But essentially, it's the same but different.
Yeah. I don't really know how they work,
Yeah.
but I think the alignment would be that healers have some kind of code or some kind of energy that comes through them that can heal either through words or song or actual energy work. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, we have these gifts.
Yep.
We do.
Okay. So another question for you. Okay, so
I do want to, can I say one more thing to it
yeah,
too?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
when a soul part comes up, that is also not surprising to the individual that I'm reading for. They can usually connect to that somehow. That
Mm.
the part of them, the part of their soul's journey that's been burdened.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, let's say, for example, you feel like you've never been loved or there's been a barrier to love. And then your soul story takes you back to an ancestral picture and it starts revealing that picture and the soul starts talking and then when we come back to the energy of the person sitting in front of me and we're talking, it's like they know because they have felt that. They have, if we're using this example, they have felt unloved in their life. They have felt these blocks and barriers and not understood them. So when somebody is in front of me, it's as if they know these things deep inside of themselves somewhere, and they can relate to the information, all of it, even if
Mhm.
it's a soul part or an ancestral part or a higher self part. I mean, I'll often get the reflection of, man, I sort of knew that. I could feel that in my life.
Mhm. Yeah, I've experienced that many times where I like a piece of information you gave me, I was able to tell you like how that theme had showed up in my childhood and through high school, right? Like it was like a thought I had. And so it was like, and then it had continued. And I was like, and I was curious about why that thought or that theme continued. But then I had a reading with you and it was like, oh my gosh, that's why. And
Yeah,
then it deepens the experience and understanding of all these different aspects of your life. So then you're able to deepen into being able to see the complexity of your story and how it weaves with your dharma now. It
right,
strengthens that significantly so that you can step into your purpose.
right. And it also deepens your, I'm going to say this and I'm kind of laughing a little bit, but it makes it undeniable that there's something else out there that is guiding, informing. It's like you can't deny it because you yourself know it.
Yes, and so what happens is much deeper embodiment.
Yes.
And like, cause it you hear it and then there's a part of your psyche that's like you're having to process that this person knows things about your life.
Right.
And so you're like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then it drops down. I just see all these layers of it dropping down into the body, like boom, 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 boom. I knew this is why I was here for this. And then you're like, that's how it relates to this. And then suddenly, because you heard it, you're able to walk it easier.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then it's like, then what's beautiful is that by you doing this work, people are able to connect deeper to their soul, listen, and become that the the next evolution of themselves so that they can be of greater service and live
Yes.
the life that they like truly are here to live. It's like it's so beautiful to be able to help people with that.
Right. And they can live it based on their own toolbox that they've been cultivating that has many tools in it. It has celestial tools in it. It has self actualization tools in it. It has meditations in it. It has your own healing gifts in it. It has your way of listening to your own intuition in it. So you are actually living, you know, we always say we want to live a full life, but honestly, what is the heck is a full life? A full life is that, like the
Mhm.
fullness of who I am, all of my tools, all of my gifts, everything I've collected along the way, my consciousness, my shadow, my pain, my suffering, the way I intuit, the way I understand the universe, the way I understand me, that's the fullness.
Mhm.
Like you can go out and live your dharmic magic because you know how to do that every day.
Mhm. Yes.
Every day, you no longer are seeking. You're no longer a seeker. You are a fully actualized being that is living their fullness.
Mhm. Yeah, and the complexity of walking the path of soul has so many layers to it, and we are all trying to decode the information and to embody the things and
Right.
to deal with the 3D and
Yes.
understand the quantum. And so it begins to like clarify across a lot of categories, but in a way that's like what I like about how you deliver information is that it is not like something that they're supposed to like do 5 years from now. It is the next step
Yes.
of the journey, which I think is I love that so much because being around channelers, sometimes they are channeling information that's really far out there and the person has no idea what to do with it.
Right.
And like and it and maybe there's also a reason why that happens, but this is very specific to the the next thing,
Yeah,
which
that
feels
avatar.
true and good, like because you don't want to bypass something, you want to do what's next. That's the way we operate.
Right. Because if we're bypassing things, when we get to what we think the fullness is, we don't feel full. I mean, how many people do we know that are reach these levels inside themselves and they still are not happy or they're still not fulfilled or they still are seeking something like this gift that I have is to help you embody yourself fully so that you don't have to seek anymore. You get to just be.
Mhm.
You get to be and you get to feel that what that is every day. And you get to climb the mountains that you want to climb. And you know that you can climb them because you have everything that you need.
Mhm.
Your needs, not a collection of 12 steps that everybody's getting downloaded with and bombarded with. No, it's yours.
Mhm.
So you can climb any mountain you want to climb. I mean, you and I are getting ready to climb a mountain and I'm not scared. Are you scared?
No, it's so fun.
Like, of course we're not, because we know we're going to take the journey. We
Mhm.
know how the journey works.
Mhm.
We know that we're going to be receiving the information that we need in the time that we need it. And the opportunities will be there, the people will be there, the experiences will be there. That's the
Mhm.
beauty of the work.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
I love that. Okay,
Like,
so my last question is there anything you want to say that I didn't ask?
um, I think one of the main things I always want to tell people is that if you're sitting with me, like in just regular conversation or like if I go to a dinner party with you, I'm not reading your energy field. I think mm, I think that is a misconception for people to think.
Mhm.
Like, so for my gift in particular, it has boundaries. So if you invite me into your space and you want to receive this gift, I can give it to you. But if you don't want that and you haven't invited me in, then there's no relationship with the energy that's happening for me or happening to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that.
And I think you know, yeah. I feel like that's a very important caveat to make. And I think it scares people. I
Mhm.
think sometimes this whole arena that we're entering where people's intuitive gifts are coming online and people are, you know, becoming healers and trying their hand at healing. Um, it's a school, it's a schooling. People's souls are sacred. What people want healed is sacred. I mean, shoot, if everybody was open, I would have healed my dad and he wouldn't have died, but he wasn't open to that. And it's not for me to convince a soul of what it wants.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody's on their own individual journeys, and what they're doing is important to them and their soul, and that should not be interrupted.
Mhm.
It should not. It's a sacred journey.
It sure is.
Yeah. And then let me see if there's anything else. I always want to tell my mom and dad I love them when I do interviews like this because of of the fact that I was living this life that they were unaware of, and it makes me sad when I think about that. But yeah, I'm like, "Oh, mom, dad, I love you guys."
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes.
um, it had nothing to do with them
Mhm.
necessarily. It had something to do with me and my own soul and
Mhm.
what, in my journey and how that unfolded for me. And when I think about it, when I reflect back on it now, I think, gosh, how wise the energy that guides me. It is so wise. I mean, I didn't know that then, obviously, because I was just growing into it. But I think about it like, oh, wow. Honestly, if I would have started talking about it, God only knows what kind of journey I'd have been on. You know, I could have been
Mhm.
medicated. I could have been,
Mhm.
and this is not discounting other people who are suffering with this. This is more about how it's hard to understand somebody who's going through a very different journey than most people,
Mhm.
and how we want to make sense of it.
Yes.
And as a child, whatever life I was living was very hard to make sense of, and it's still hard for me to make sense of it, to be honest. It's just who I am. It's hard to make sense of it. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, meeting you is the closest I've gotten to making sense of it
Yeah.
and being able to talk about it. and being able to share the nuances of it.
Yeah, because my gene key is the esoteric translator, and it's like a pretty big hobby of mine to translate, to bring language to what you do.
I know, I'm
I
so
find it to be
grateful.
like fascinating. Like I'm like just like a hobby would be like photography or something. Like I like to translate the esoteric.
I'm so grateful. Because as we are, as our consciousness is evolving on the planet, we're going to need a lot more of that. You know, there's going to
Hmm.
be a lot of misunderstandings that need to be understood as it relates to all of the new energies that are coming. You know, even the children, they're going to change. They're changing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find, I don't know, sometimes that we don't have to record this, but I want to keep recording, but I want you to just chat with me. But if you think about life itself, how can you not believe in evolution? Like, for example, the way my mom grew up is very different than the way I grew up. And then how I grew up is very different than how Ocean and Ara are growing up. Like, how can you not believe that there's a consciousness and there's an evolution to thought? Because it's happened throughout history.
I have no idea.
I mean, when you break it down like that, it's like, how can you not understand?
Well, I think people do. I just see it as their protector part. So if someone's
Yeah.
like atheist, it's just extremely strong protector part.
Yeah. I just find it fascinating. I feel like all of this happens every day and we can actually see it. You know, if you think about evolution, you can see it happening. You can see that people have radically changed by, I don't know, by parents parenting differently, by information being different, by the collective having expansive awarenesses. Like, you can see it. It unfolds right in front of your eyes.
Yes.
Evolution.
Yeah, it's wild.
I know, I don't, yeah, it's very crazy when I think about it. But anyway, that's a tangent for another day.